Hello everyone, glad to see you again for this video. So today, I'm taking you to an environment that I really like, which is the world of climbing, bouldering, or even mountaineering. So in this video, we're going to see how to go down a steep slope or a wall with just a simple rope without any accessories. So we can use these methods in emergency situations, of course, when the usual equipment is not available or is no longer available. So we might have lost it, or maybe it's just damaged sometimes. We might only have a simple rope, which is a very common situation. Let's review the various makeshift techniques together. And in the last part of the video, we'll even look in detail at a few knots and tricks that help optimize a rappel descent with this minimal equipment. Once again, I'll show you some survival techniques. So we're talking about the most basic techniques here, okay? The most basic ones there are. We're far from using safe techniques here, so don't take any risks. Don't forget that these techniques should only be used when you already have a good foundation or as a last resort when you're in a survival situation. So we'll also see that when you master these techniques, you can do big rappels without overloading yourself since you don't need all the technical equipment. Now we'll cover the classic standard rappel. This is the S-rappel, the Dulfer method. So it's a method that was used in the past before figure 8 descender systems were developed. So that was before the 70s. This method lets us secure ourselves on slopes, scree, and vertical walls like here. We can use it with a double rope, but also with a single rope. So for the Dulfer method, your Dulfer is here. We'll do it with the double rope. So first you pass your rope between your legs, then you bring it across here diagonally in front of your chest, and then you take your end at the back here, both strands at the back here. There you go. So now you're on the classic Dulfer. Naturally, this method has some flaws. You can have problems with rope burn. You need to be in decent physical shape, let's say. Otherwise, you'll lack control and might tip backward. We'll be better off during descent if we wear clothing that protects us at friction points. Now let's look at the South African method. Actually, it's the Friedman method developed in the 2000s, so it's much more recent. So we'll see that friction is generated over a larger surface area with this method, and it will be better suited for light clothing. So we're going down again with a double rope. The rope will better support the rappel while standing and will be less likely to tip backward. We'll have a bit more control. So if you're carrying a backpack or gear you don't want to get rid of, this technique will give you a bit more stability. So the crossings. First, we're going to pass both strands under the armpits, cross them behind the back, bring them to the front, and pass them between the legs. And right-handed people will take the two remaining strands in their left hand, which will allow them to have their right hand completely free. Now you're on your rappel. So, South African technique this time, the Friedman technique. So here we're going to do it in a t-shirt because there's much less friction, so it's less traumatic, less dermabrasion. So here we send down the whole rope. We check that it's all the way at the bottom. So here It's marked in the center, so that's important. That way you're sure you're in the middle. So, as we've seen, pass it behind your back, between your legs, and grab it with your left hand. And now I'm good. So obviously with the pull of the rope will pass very quickly under the armpits. There you go. So here you can clearly see that the right hand was completely free. However, it's a technique that's a bit slower. You can really feel the friction lock, and sometimes it's even a little bit difficult to go down. But well, it's a good technique. Now we're going to review everything. So now we'll see that the first method, Dulfer's method, is more versatile and superior in certain situations because it's possible to rappel with the Dulfer on a single strand, whereas with the Friedman, that's not possible. Let me explain. When you have a rope that's less than twice the length of the wall, you'll have to rappel on a single strand. So in this situation, you can anchor your rope and leave it there, but you'll lose it. Here's another technique you should know. All you need for that is to have a cord with you, a cord that's at least as long as your main rope. This cord will allow us to extend the main rope. We'll see how. For descending on a single strand, we'll now use the Dufour knot. So, as usual, we take a good anchor. We check that it slides well at this point. So the Dufour knot is a type of braiding with 4 strands. So you'll need to make at least 7 loops and tighten them well each time. That's important. Once you've made 7 or 8 loops, you'll finish. Like here with a loop. So here you have the strand on which you can safely rappel, and this one, which is the release strand. So when you're at the bottom, you'll just need to alternately pull on each strand, and you'll retrieve your rope. Now let's take a closer look at how to tie the Dufour knot. So you make a first pass like this. You take one strand and you pass it through this loop. You make a new loop. You take the next strand, and so on. Systematically, you make a loop and you pass the other one through it. So you do this 6 or 7 times, 7 or 8 times. To make sure as much as possible, you tighten it each time. And at the end, you're going to leave a fairly large loop so you can properly lock your knot. There you go. Now you should have 7 turns, and your Dufour knot should look like this. You have the strand that will be put under tension at this point, and you have the release strand here. Now that we've seen the principle of the Dufour knot, we're going to see how to extend this rope with a cord. So we're going to make a double or triple sheet bend, which is what we call a joining knot. So that means it's going to help us splice the 2 ropes together. Its main feature is that it can join 2 ropes of different types and, most importantly, of different diameters. Also, this double or triple sheet bend is easy to untie even after it's been under significant and prolonged tension. So it's the best knot there is for joining two ropes. It's stronger than the simple sheet bend, especially when it's been shaken or handled roughly. So here, you already have the simple sheet bend. And then to make the triple sheet bend, you just need to make 2 additional turns at this point. And there you have the triple sheet bend. So once that's tightened, it's a knot that almost never comes undone. You can be pretty sure you'll be able to pull the rope back without any problem. So a quick note about the Dufour knot. It's often seen done very quickly like this, a bit loosely. So it works. We'll see. Here, you have the strand that's under tension here, so it works. On the other hand, if when you go down you catch it on the bag or on your foot, or if you make a small mistake and you pull on the wrong strand, in principle, everything comes off very easily. With the weight, everything comes loose. So it's a dangerous knot if it's done incorrectly. So I recommend being very careful with this knot to tie it conscientiously and make sure it's tight. So if you do it smartly, you'll have a braid, a nice braid that forms, very neat. And once it's been put under tension, if you make the same mistake on the way down, like if you hook your backpack, for example, subtitling, there, in principle, if it's tight, it will lock again. So it gives you the right to make mistakes, and even usually several mistakes. Don't overdo it. Pulling too hard on the wrong end can bring everything down with you. So, now that the Dufour knot is done and we've extended it with the cord, the main rope, we can send the main rope, and then we'll send the cord. Being careful not to pull on this one since it's going to be used to unlock. So both need to be all the way down. Now we're going to position this Dufour knot so it can be properly unlocked when we start. Now we're going to do a descent using the Dulfer method, so it won't be a problem. On a single strand. Always ensure you're on the correct strand and no mistakes have occurred. And here we go. Let's recap everything now. So you'll see that after a descent, you often have to hang onto the rope, both ropes, the cord or the small cord, in order to properly release this Dufour knot. That's why the sheet bend knot must be strong, so we use a triple sheet bend knot. So this Dufour knot that I have up there, we use it for rappels of up to 25 meters. You can also use it with a full double rope with a standard descender. So now we're going to pull all of this down. There you go. There you go. So it came down pretty easily, no problem. So we're also going to use it when we're not sure if we can retrieve the rope easily. When you have sharp angles, roots on your wall, a bit like here, the rope won't slide well. With the Dufour, retrieving the rope is usually easier, faster, and more discreet. So you'll wear it out less, because when you're in a natural area on the rock, when the rope slides, it really wears out the ropes very, very quickly. Now let's look at another method. So this method is going to be much safer, much more comfortable, and very quick for the descent. And it will allow us to go down a vertical wall and even descend in midair, which is called a spider line descent. However, in return, this method takes a little longer to set up, and it will use a good portion of the rope, so you need to allow for about 3 to 3.5 extra meters. This is the technique using the improvised harness. For this method, I'll show you all the rope passes. You'll see. It seems a little complicated at first, but with a few hours of practice, you can definitely do it. So we'll start, and to clearly show you the basic principle, we'll look at it with a strap. Then we'll do exactly the same thing with the rope. So first, you put your ring behind your back. Then you reach between your legs for the first pass. You put the right part inside the loop and the left part inside the loop as well, in the same way, symmetrically. And there you have your harness. These harnesses are reliable, sturdy, quick to put on, and just as quick to take off. That's the whole point. Now let's see how to make this improvised harness with the rope. So we go to the end of the rope and take about 2.5 armfuls. Next, we're going to tie a bowline knot at this point. So a bowline knot where we'll leave about 20 or 30 centimeters of slack, so the knot can be adjusted. Next, we're going to do exactly what we did with the strap. So you place it on the back at this point. The knot we just made should be between the thigh and the hand. So we do the same thing. We're going to go between the legs. We go through the loop on the right, through the loop on the left, and we end up with our harness with 2 loops at this level. So now we're going to secure these loops. Since we don't have any carabiners, we only have 1 rope. So we're going to take the remaining part here and make another knot, a bowline knot, but this time a double one. It might seem a little complicated, but it's actually not. So you take this double rope and pass it through these 2 loops you just made. And now you make a bowline knot as if you only had 1 strand, but you do it with both strands. There you go. You make your bowline knot just like that, and you put it under a little bit of tension. So now you end up with a loop here. This loop will be used to descend either by making a half hitch or a round turn. So let's see how. Now, what's important is that you will have the loaded strand will be this one. And when this one is under tension, the other one should not be under tension. You have your knot here. This one should not be under tension. That's important. Otherwise, you'll have bad anchor points. There you go. So now we're going to see how to secure ourselves. So in terms of safety, it's a technique that's as good as any other. However, it may be less comfortable. Anyway, the point here isn't to spend the whole day rappelling down 300-meter cliffs. So we're just here to be able to get past an obstacle when needed where others might be stopped. Also, you only need to know 1 knot to do it, and an extra knot for the descent depending on the situation. We'll look at that right now. So in this specific case of anchoring to a tree, you just need to make a dead turn at the loop of your improvised harness. If your anchor is a carabiner, a guardrail, or a railing, you'll need to tie a half hitch knot to secure yourself so that there's a bit more friction to control your descent. Let's take a closer look at tying the half hitch knot. So you have the loop here from your improvised harness, your makeshift harness here. In red and in green, you have your rope for the descent, so you make a loop in the loop, and you pass the rope back through here. And there you already have the half hitch knot. So this half hitch knot is very simple. So the advantage of this knot is that depending on the direction of pull, depending on which strand you apply tension to, it will actually, you can see there's a lot of friction that will allow you to control your descent. But if you change the strand you pull on, it will organize itself in exactly the same way, symmetrically. So there you go. This is classic. The half hitch knot flips over, and that's its normal use. Now, we're going to make our double bowling knot here, actually. Our double bowling, rather. We make it fairly short so that we end up with the loop at this level and not here. That way, you'll be able to control your descent without any problem. So you can clearly see that here we have some slack, and here it's going to be under tension. So now we're going to wrap the whole rope around the tree, and then we're going to make a dead turn with the rope on our ring. Then we'll send everything over and we can start our descent. So to conclude, the situations where we'll need this kind of technique are obviously relatively rare. But in any case, these are techniques you should know that will complement and improve your survival crossing skills, provided you've practiced them at least a few times. Don't forget that repetition is the key to mastery. So, as you understand, each technique has its advantages and disadvantages. Therefore, each time, you'll need to choose the technique best suited to the circumstances you encounter. Thank you again for watching this video all the way to the end. Be careful of the pitfalls of always being in front of a screen. Go outside, practice. Training is part of the path that leads to independence and freedom. Get ready. See you soon with new videos.